When women say that men don't have a right to say abortion's wrong or have a right to say anything like in such a manner, Roe v. Wade was decided by men. So again, it's a double standard. So you have women saying men should have no say in it. Yeah.
What's going on? This is your Silver Stranger 01. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Strangers gather as the world is on the verge of shatter. Oh, no, let's run that back. Rewind. Strangers gather as the world is on the verge of shatter. Alright, I got a good one. We got part 3. Pro-choice men versus pro-life women. Let's get into it.
They wanted men to make laws so they could have an abortion, and they were okay with that. But then they say men have, but again, the child, it takes a man and a woman. And so absolutely men should have a say to be able to protect and defend their children.
Yeah, I agree that men should have a say in abortion. And I think it's important that men are part of the conversation because, again, it is a moral issue at the heart of it. And so men should have a say in that.
I actually, sorry. And I completely disavow any, heat towards men for wanting to be part of something that they believe in, whether it's pro-life or, whether it's being a part of like this conversation like ourselves of trying to advocate for our own, sex being man. And just because like we've mentioned before, shooting was, it's difficult for this topic in general for men, considering just the topic itself. But I guess I want to get a bearing on your guys' opinion. Because I agree with you guys, there should never be heat thrown towards men ever in that sense. And we do have a portion of this, obviously, when it comes to pregnancy. It takes a man to do.
Right.
But do you guys understand why people are saying like my uterus, my choice, or like kind of those like phrases in that sense? Do you like, I guess, what's the grand overall view?
People use a lot of euphemisms to dehumanize and to make abortion like look like something like it's not. So when they say my body, my choice, it's not really a choice. It's not their body. And so they don't, to me, it's distraction from the real heart of the issue. Is the child worthy of protection? Is a child a living human being? And if so, which I believe it is biologically, and then that child is worthy of life and protection. And so, and that, again, like she talked about, the moral issues is a man and a woman thing. It's not just, not one gender decides, is rape wrong? Should we have laws against rape? I think they use that as a distraction to get off the real issues. And so there's a lot of euphemisms, even like when we talk about abortion as health care, again, it's a euphemism, or when we call it a fetus. Well, a fetus means little one, offspring. It's a human offspring. And so we, just like in slavery and the Holocaust, we use dehumanizing words to kind of make abortion wrapped up in pretty wrapping paper and not the reality of what abortion is, which is the destruction of an innocent child.
Yeah, and I feel like the language, deliberately diminishes the voice of men or try to disqualify them. And it's, like it's manipulation. And it's like kind of off-putting every time I hear it.
Gaslighting.
And there's a whole lot of situations in life where people who haven't lived it need to be part of the solution. Like when there's handicapped people, those of us that are strong need to build the handicap ramps and fix the laws to help those people thrive in society. Just because I haven't broken my legs myself doesn't mean I can't have opinion on what's the right way to include those people in society. Or just because I haven't been 95 years old yet doesn't mean that I can't use my head to think what is the best way to lovingly offer care to people that are aging and at end of life. And so to say right and wrong, God speaks to us through our conscience, through our heart, and you can recognize that and think through the evidence that's given to you, even if you haven't lived that experience. Those that have lived it might have a little bit more to say, or we can listen to them, but right and wrong is something that's understood by all people.
I would address, so you asked, your question was why, like, what is our opinion on why people use the ideas like my body, my choice? No uterus, no opinion. I think a lot of people, I don't think every person that supports pro-choice is just trying to deceive others. I think a lot of people, like you guys, genuinely believe it's a medical procedure like a root canal or something like that. It's a personal medical decision, is my understanding of the understanding. of pro-choice people. And I think that that's why they see it as something that no one else should have an opinion on. And I wouldn't tell someone else, well, I should have a say on your root canal. Like, I don't have a say in that. That's your body, you know? And I would support them, no one else being able to make a medical decision like a root canal for them. Where it falls apart, in my opinion, where I stop to disagree with the my body, my choice claim, is when it comes to another human life being involved, another human being part of the equation. So I definitely see where it's coming from, but that is the part where I disagree with it.
Yeah, and something I maybe take off of is like, most of the time I'm not commenting on what my friends are choosing to eat or drink, but if someone was going to drink and drive, I would be commenting, you know, like maybe it's not my body that's putting the alcohol into the stomach, but like as a friend or even as not a friend, just as a human being, I should put a stop to things that are likely to cause harm to others.
And I love that you said that, commenting, because, you know, we've all been there. We've all had friends who make bad decisions, family members even, and we give our opinion of it, whether they agree with it or not. Most of the time, they don't agree with it. And that's totally fine. And I think that kind of just loops back into pro-choice, where, again, I think, you know, my opinion of if you want to keep a child, or if you know, whether as a man, a woman, whoever, if you want to keep a child, that's fine. But I think you should still have that choice to do with what you will with your body, especially as a woman. And I guess I asked that previous question too, more so specifically, just to get a bearing of, I guess, where you guys are at, because I feel as though, I don't want to speak for every woman, but a lot of women in my life feel as though that the revocation of Roe v. Wade is an assault on their rights, getting slowly pulled back. Because body autonomy, and, you know, as we know in the 50s, you know, I guess I wasn't alive, but, you know, history books have told us that women's life weren't all very glamorous in the 40s and 50s whatsoever at all.
Yeah, well, something I say is like the reversing of Roe v. Wade is the recognition that the original decision didn't really have the legal substance to have been right. And they had this whole thing of privacy. You know, they expanded right to privacy to
Nobody's life was that great back then. This guy's a feminist.
include killing other people. But like, we don't say what happens in my bedroom, I've got a right to privacy, so rape is okay so long as I keep the window shut. Or we don't say what happens in my car is, you know, I got privacy to drink in my car if no one's looking. Like, privacy doesn't give you permission to do wrong for anything else. So why would privacy give you right to kill a child? And so it really makes sense that Roe v. Wade would be overturned, because the foundation of it was nonsense.
It was actually based on a lie. Because Norma McCorvey claimed she was raped and she wasn't raped. So abortion became legal. 99% of all abortions are not because of rape. But because it was built on a lie, the whole thing was built on a lie.
Is your perspective missing from this conversation? If you want us to reserve you a seat on a future episode, don't wait. Our casting link is in the description. We've covered a lot of the prompts that we'd like to cover, so now we are going to do something called free-for-all. We did a coin toss earlier to see who would start this, and the pro-life side won. So we'll give it over to them to begin counterpoint free-for-all.
What I would like to share about this is, like, there's consequences besides just for the individual people making the decision and the children that get killed. There's things that happen to the society when we allow this to happen. I represent a group called Choose Life, and we're working to end abortion in Nebraska. And our inspiration for our name even is this verse that says, "This day I call heaven and earth to witness against you. They've given you a choice between life and death, blessing and cursing. Oh, that you would choose life so that you and your children may live." But that first part where God says, "I'm calling heaven to earth and earth to witness," there's consequences on the land when we choose to kill innocent children. And last year in Nebraska, there was a lot of debate and rhetoric around the issue of abortion, and there were two ballot initiatives. One to say it's completely legal up to viability and beyond if the abortionist thinks the baby's weak. And there was another one that said abortion is completely legal for the first trimester or beyond if the abortionist thinks the mother is weak or rape or incest. And as we have people all summer long talking about why we need to kill for this reason or that reason, last year we had more violent storms in Nebraska than in the previous 10 years put together. We had tornadoes, we had hailstorms, setting records for like drought and floods kind of in short time from each other. One of the storms popped up out of nowhere, and the wind was so much it was equivalent to a Category 2 hurricane. And right now, property insurance is more expensive in Nebraska than a whole lot of other places. Or at least some sources say we're the highest, others say we're in the top 3 or 4, but because we've had all these violent storms, but people been killed, people lost their houses from the violent storms. This year, the weather's been a whole lot calmer, but we've had 2 bad storms, and both of them were during the fundraiser for a pregnancy center as opposed to ending abortion. So last year, people were saying we need to kill every single weekend, and we had storms all the time. This year, they've had only 2 events to tell us that message, and there was violent storms both times. So there's consequences for the land, and even for like the pill and the birth control, like when people take that chemical and put it into their body, it doesn't just kill their own children. Sewage systems are not able to remove the pharmaceuticals from the water. So people that are taking it, peeing it out, are killing children downstream. And I know someone that when they lived in Iowa City, couldn't get pregnant, or when she did, it was a miscarriage really early on. Miscarriage after miscarriage, children she loved died. When she moved out of Iowa City, got cleaner water, never had a problem afterwards. But besides killing the children downstream, the fish that are swimming in that water are also getting exposed to pharmaceuticals, and they found fish that have eggs inside their testicles from all the hormones they're taking. So we're not just killing our own children, we're hurting the environment. And there's acts of God, there's consequences when we kill children.
What I wanted to say, which goes a little bit with what she was saying, that it ultimately comes down to God being the creator of all life. And so abortion really comes down to, we are created by God in his image for a purpose and a reason, every single person. And so inherently, abortion, yes, we have biological science that proves it's a human life, and therefore it should be worthy of protection, even in a secular society. But ultimately, it comes down that it is a great insult to destroy the creation of the creator. We all have a creator, God, and it comes down to, it is a spiritual issue. Abortion is not just a human rights issue. Some people try to make it a political issue. It's not a political issue. It's a human rights issue, a moral issue, but ultimately it comes down to, it's a spiritual issue. Abortion is a spiritual issue. The root of abortion is sin. And that's why I believe abortion is a symptom. It's a very bad symptom of sin. And all have sinned and fallen short in the glory of God. And Jesus Christ came to save and bring us life. And he wants to bring spiritual life and eternal life. And he can forgive those who've been involved with abortions and bring them spiritual life. But abortion ultimately is a spiritual issue. In Scripture, in Old and New Testament, they would offer their children to the god of Moloch, the people of Israel, who are God's people. And then we saw Moses, during the time of the Moses in the Exodus, that the Pharaoh made them throw their babies into the river. And we see in the time of Jesus that Herod wanted to destroy Jesus, so he ordered all the children 2 and under to be destroyed. So abortion, child sacrifice, the murder of innocent children have been, we see that even in the Bible, it's a spiritual issue. And so ultimately is spiritual warfare. And I believe, like you said, there are people who I think there's deception and there's a spiritual blindness. And so some people know the truth that abortion is murder. Others, I believe, don't understand the real heart of the matter. And so we need to show grace and love to those who don't understand, but try to bring the truth that it is a spiritual issue and that abortion is murder. And it's wrong because God created all life, and that life is worthy to protect it because we are created in his image, which gives us purpose and gives us value.
Well, I guess I'm completely agnostic. I have no association with any religion. I respect religion in many different ways. But in this aspect, most pro-lifers, I think you guys would agree, are probably religious in some way, whether Christian, Islam, in any given sense, really. And so I guess I'm not confused in the sense of the word entirely, but what was the storms part? Or let me clarify, I guess, that question.
Yeah, thanks. In the Bible, when God gives the law to Moses, and the law includes thou shalt not kill, after he gives the list of like, this is right and wrong, this is what to live by, he says, I'm calling heaven and earth as the witnesses of the choice to be made. And with the storms last year, like, it's unusual. Like, if you track the weather, it usually hasn't been that bad. And suddenly we have a year. Part where like we're fighting with each other in the street over the abortion issue because of the ballot initiative. So like people are fighting with each other, but there's signs in the heavens that there's like tornadoes, hail, violent wind, way more than, more storms than the previous time was put together. It's unusual. It's an act of God. If you follow the trend, it's an anomaly.
This might be a completely different topic for a different even setting, religion and such, but the correlation and causation of that goes against of the amount of abortions that's, because you said how many years ago is that?
It was last year. So last year, as there was the hot air of people debating each other and saying we should kill this many children or maybe we should kill this many, and both sides were saying we want to kill children. It was very, they were at each other's throats, but then there was both sides were saying we want to be killing lots of children. And as we're having that kind of storm in the human world, there were storms in the heavens.
And then coming from an agnostic approach, you can probably find that's really hard for me to, I guess, believe that the heavens was reacting to what's happening down here. I would even call myself slightly spiritual, but abortions have gone down since Roe v. Wade in Nebraska have gone down. So I guess where are you making that connection of the land reacting to? Are you saying it's reacting to the outcry of people who are pro-choice or like pro-abortion? I guess I'm just kind of getting lost in the sauce here.
She's trying to say that there's judgments of God upon a nation when they kill innocent preborn children.
And I guess like I've seen some other interesting trends in the nature that follow other acts of genocide. So like in Nebraska in the 1860s and 70s, they were slaughtering the buffalo in order to starve the Native Americans. And like right at the peak of like the next year after some of their peak slaughter, there was a plague of grasshoppers that showed up that people hadn't really seen this before, but it showed up, a storm of grasshoppers like has never been seen. For 3 years, they had billions of grasshoppers that would blacken out the sun and eat people's clothes off their backs, eat all of their food, eat the wood, eat the fibers, and white people started starving to death. And like the same, and if you look at the map of the bison slaughter and the map of the grasshopper plague, it's the same map. So like in the place where people tried to starve others, starvation came to them. In Nebraska, starting 1895 to the 1940s, they would do a parade every year in honor of pagan gods, and especially pagan rain gods. And for the 50 years that they were doing these exorbitant parades, we had 20% less rain. And you can look at the scatter plot, like we used to have a lot of rain and then we had 50 years of less, and then it popped up again. And so I've seen a lot of patterns where the things that happen in the natural world follow the choices of people. But I guess why was last year a bad year when we had 50 years of abortion? Often when there's consequences, it's because when the church joins into the sin, that's when the consequence is. Like there's a verse that says, if I'm sending a plague of grasshoppers or I'm shutting up the heavens so there's no rain, and my people who are called by my name humble themselves and pray and repent, then I'll hear from heaven, heal the land. Last year we had churches all over the place saying abortion for the first trimester is fine. And that is 99.9% of the abortions are first trimester. So last year we had churches saying abortion is fine, and that was a first, maybe in the nation. So yeah, excellent question. That's why last year was bad when we've had 50 years.
And something I want to jump into now is, aside from asking questions and responding, if you came on this episode, and this is kind of the thing I wanted everybody to do, right, and I think you did it. And now I want to see, if you came on this episode and you're like, there's something I want to say, and maybe the prompts didn't fit it or whatever, if there's anything, let it rip now.
I am still trying to figure out like my relationship with God and like everything like that. I won't even begin to say like I'm Christian, agnostic. Like I'm still trying to figure that out. One thing that I've always felt is there should be a separation between church and state. I don't think that you should ever use religion to kind of like base your laws around religion, because religion is not like something everybody believes. There's different religions. There's people who are atheists, agnostic. Like there's so many different like.
You live in America, bro. America's laws are based around religion, dummy.
Categories that people fit into that are so broad that I don't think it's necessarily fair to say. Like a lot of the part that I hear, like a lot of that, like what I hear from the pro-life side of it, a lot of times is based on their religion, and a lot of laws I feel like are made by conservatives who are using their religion as the basis for why they're making the laws that they're making, why they're voting for the laws the way that they're voting for them. And I think that it's not really necessarily fair to the country as a whole or the world as a whole to say like religion says this or my faith says this, So we should make the laws based on that.
I have a question to ask you. Then who decides if murder is wrong or right? I mean, where does that come from? Who makes that decision?
The collective.
So you think the people, so if the people think it's okay, like in Germany, they thought it was okay to kill Jews. If the majority
That was
said so-
because of reasons. I
Right.
thought it was okay because of the rhetoric that was being spoken
Right.
to,
So
much like how we see it in the conservative realm right now.
I think my point I was trying to make is that ultimately comes from God. It's written on everybody's heart. Whether you are a Christian or not a Christian, we all have this moral laws written on our heart by God. We know murder is wrong. And I'm not even, let's put abortion over here. We know it'd be wrong to kill her. She's an innocent person. I think we'd all agree on that, right? And so, but where does that come from? Like, and why? And so so laws are based on the moral law that's written on our heart by God. And so that comes from inherently from God. Every person knows in their heart of hearts it's wrong to murder an innocent person. I mean, you can go anywhere around the world or to rape someone or to, different things that we know inherently are wrong. And I believe that it's the moral law written on our hearts from God himself. Even if you don't acknowledge God, even if you don't know if there's a God, that's put in your heart for a reason. We don't just...
Yeah, and something I'd say is like, we all know that killing humans is murder, but like squashing bugs or killing animals is like a lesser thing. Like for sure we don't want to just like go killing animals just for sport, but we know that human life has a higher value than animals or bugs. And like, what is that unless we have a soul? Human lives are going to endure forever.
Yeah, that was my next question. Why does the human life, from your opinion, and I assume it's again religious, of course, but why is it different from myself? And we'll even use something more relevant, like a chimpanzee. Let's say, kill a chimpanzee, kill the person. Why is my life more valuable than the animal there?
Because you've got an eternal soul that your spirit's gonna live forever, even if your body does not. Like we're all gonna one day be in heaven or hell, but like God gave you a personality, a purpose, kind of destiny. Like there's good things that need to be done on this earth that are waiting for you to do it. Like there's good things God wants me to do in my life. There's things that he wants you to be doing in your life. You're going to make the world better. There's purpose and destiny. God gave us a different weight.
If we go back to creation, God created everything and he's called it good. Animals, chimpanzees, people. But there's only one creation that he said was created in his image, and that is human beings. And so that's why we have a higher value, because we are created in the image of God.
To bring this the discourse kind of to the middle. I am a Christian. I love God. I live my life to honor him. And that does influence my political beliefs. But the most compelling page on Instagram that I've found about pro-life is a secular pro-life. Like that's their thing, is that they are atheists, agnostics, and they do not support abortion because it's the killing of a human. They come out from the perspective that all human life is valuable, from a logical perspective, that life begins at conception because of the biological characteristics that it has, and then it's also human, and because it's human, all stages of development and all humans are valuable. And so there are people that are not religious that support life.
And I would like to, I guess we're going to keep going with this. So life begins at conception, right? And so that's just the sperm and the egg come together. How can you guys define that for me in a more, specific way? Because to me, that is not a human. Obviously, if we're looking at under a microscope, that is cellular life at the end of the day. The potentiality to become a fetus and then be born is absolutely there, the blueprint. But what exactly, I just want you guys to explain that from your perspective.
Well, the soul comes in at conception too, and just like it takes time for the body to develop enough, for speaking and breathing and all the expression, and even babies when they're born, they don't talk to us. Like it takes a few years of development before they're able to talk and have conversations and, fight for right and wrong. But
They still communicate though.
Yeah. Well, newborns, I guess they cry, but
crying, they get, because that's the thing, right?
Yeah,
Even
but like even in the womb, they can like kick when they're happy and bounce around, and they can
at a
respond
certain
basically
age, at a
with it.
certain weak age, they
Yeah,
can.
well, you need arms before you're able to move arms, but they do have a soul, and like I said, like there's stories of kids that remember their life before they were born. They remember certain things about being in their mother's womb, being warm and loved, or even remembering I've got brothers in the freezer. Like
The
they got a
text,
soul.
the textbooks on embryology would say it's a human life because it's now a new being that has never existed, that has DNA, that now has the whole genetic makeup for Is that child gonna be, is that child male, female, the color of the eyes, the hair? It's a unique human being that's never existed before. And so from the biology standpoint, we can see that it is a human life. But then also, we talked about in the last couple of years, it's fascinating to me that there's this spark of life that happens at conception. And what's interesting, you go back to Genesis, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and there was light. And so I think that's interesting that creation began with light, and human life begins with a spark of life. And I believe that is the soul coming into that embryo, because it's just human. We have a heart, a mind, emotions. It's not just our physical bodies. We are a human being, a spiritual being with a soul created by God to have a relationship with Him.
That's a chemical reaction. I don't know the entirety. I have seen that video of when the sperm goes into the egg, then there is a flash of light. It's a chemical reaction, just like how we are all chemicals and we are all products of water, H2O, hydrogen, oxygen. We are all chemicals. That's just a chemical reaction.
What created the chemicals to create the reaction?
The Big Bang.
Can I ask a question? Sure. I think this is kind of going to bring us to a level playing field, because talking about, I believe that there are souls. I believe we all have souls, but I don't think that's going to convince anyone's minds here, because we come at this from a different perspective. So I think the root of this issue is, what is the fetus, and is it worth protecting? So do you think it's a human?
At what point?
From conception on, do you think it's a human?
I think it has the potentiality to be human when it is born. When it has around 20 weeks, when it develops that consciousness part of its brain, or the wiring comes together, that I think is an argument that I'm willing to make. But
so
before
if it's
that,
not a human, then what is it?
it's a fetus.
Which means it's a little one, or offspring. And it's a fetus of what? An offspring of what?
An offspring of a human,
beings.
but it's offspring, it's a fetus. Just like have dogs have fetuses, every animal has a fetus.
But it's not a dog or a cat.
It's not, but it's a human fetus. Fetus is a general word.
See, this is where I would jump in and say, because it's a human fetus, it's worth protecting. Regardless of the developmental stage it's at, I believe it's a human. We've agreed that it's a human fetus. And I believe, and I'm arguing for defending human fetuses.
Okay, so one thing that, to answer your question, I believe it's a human once it has both a heartbeat and brain function. To me, it has to have those two things. If it only has one or the other, I wouldn't necessarily consider it. To say that I don't consider it human, it sounds horrible. But I don't think it should be taken in the same as a child or a fetus that does have both of those. And the reason why I say that is because I think I said this earlier, where I look at it on the flip side of, if someone's on life support, the first thing that they're gonna look at is do they have brain functions? That person can't make their decisions for themselves. Somebody else has to make that decision. Do we pull the plug? Do we let them stay on life support and hoping that brain function comes back? I kind of look at it the same way as a fetus. Once it has a heartbeat and brain functions, that's kind of when we determine okay, this is a viable human being, this is a viable life. That's kind of where I think once it has those two things, I think abortion laws get really tricky, and then it becomes more okay, what's the woman's health? Is this pregnancy gonna cause risk to her health? Is it a viable pregnancy for the baby? Is this baby gonna have any sort of deficiencies or anything like that? That's kind of where I look at it that. But to answer your question, I think it has to have a heartbeat and brain function.
As pro-choice, is your belief aligned more with the fact that you don't see the fetus as a life, as they've referenced, it's terminating of a life, or is it unfavorable circumstances that could be at hand after the baby is born?
Yeah, and so I think, again, just the blanket statement, the pro-choice aspect of it, that's up to the mother, and that's what I would give to them. Personally speaking, on the fetus, that's why I'm such I'm heading on the brain function and the consciousness experience. Again, that the 20-ish weeks or whatever, that is when life, I would say, is arguable. That's when it begins. In my current opinion, and what science shows at least, is that wiring inside the head of the fetus shows that a conscious experience is possible. And I'll piggyback off of what he's been saying with the person who might be brain dead, who maybe is on oxygen or in a coma or whatever. As much as we would love to say anything outside of that, we are our brain, right? I mean, we physically are flesh and everything. Our emotions, our thoughts, we're all from our brain. If there's no brain function, there's no human.
I've seen all the the hardships that come with having kids that you can't afford, with having kids that you were not prepared for, with having when you weren't like mentally ready. I've experienced those. That's not something that I think is necessarily fair to just say you have to go through that because of unknown reasons. Like I think it was you. I could be completely wrong, but I think it was you that said like you don't know if a woman's been raped or if this was a baby made consensually. The hard part is, how do you say one is like, obviously one is better than the other, but how do you say, well, yours was made happy time, yours was a tragic event, but you both have to go through the same experience? I don't like, so I've seen the way that can affect people, and I just don't think that that's necessarily fair to just say, you've got to deal with this because this life could turn out to be something great. Like, we just don't know. We could play what if all day with those kind of things. Like you could say, what if this baby turns out to be, you know, the person that cures cancer? Great. But at the same time, you could say, what happens if this baby turns out to be the next Jeffrey Dahmer? Like you don't know. So I don't think it's fair to just like, as a whole, say you don't have access to this abortion, you can't terminate the pregnancy at all because of the blanket of abortions are wrong and we think it's a killing of the human life.
It's so strange that you say, you know, we don't know if the kid's going to cure cancer or be a murderer, but like we don't kill 5-year-olds because we don't know who they're going to turn out to. We don't kill 2-year-olds for that thing. Like the unknown, you know, we shouldn't kill someone because it might be a potential to become a murderer later. Like we punish murder after it happens, not when it's a possibility out of thousands. I think you're the one actually that said you can't look at 2 ultrasounds and figure out which one's the rape baby, which one's not. People have value no matter how they are conceived, but there's something kind of sick in our culture that we look at children as a burden, it's going to cost, it's going to do this. Like children are a blessing and they change your life and they give you hugs and they love you and they make you a better person. And I haven't heard of anyone getting to the end of their days, like being in a nursing home, wishing that they never had kids and work more hours at the office. Like when you get older and your ability to enjoy life for yourself starts to diminish, you live life through your children, through your grandchildren, and that's what you get excited about. That's what you talk about. Like I have a few friends that are older and the center of their world is their grandkids. And so it's sad that we keep talking about like how much the kid's going to cost. Food is cheap, and you can get on WIC. Like never in the history of the world have we been able to, you know, perhaps 100 years ago, you would spend most of your wages would go towards food. And now it's like the hours worked to get a pound of flour or a gallon of milk is not much. Like on minimum wage, like housing and everything else is ridiculous, but food is cheap. We have WIC that even helps with that. But children are a blessing. And, you know, it's a few years of feeding them. It does change your life, but they grow up. And if you do it right, they'll be friends with you. Yeah, sometimes the blessing of an awesome marriage leads to the blessing of children. Sometimes the worst, horrible situation ever of rape leads to the blessing of having a children. But the child is a blessing, and he's, you know, for the mom that had him through rape, he's someone that can give her hugs and will love her unconditionally, give her a purpose to life, give her some distraction to help heal from that thing. And I've heard a lot of stories of like, the child like apologized to his mom again and again, like, I'm so sorry for what my father did. That was wrong. Thank you for loving me. Like, it's an opportunity for healing. Having a loving child that came out of that trauma is an opportunity for healing.
One thing that I feel like, you know, a lot of people, especially like on the pro-life side, I'm not saying you guys, but a lot of people on the pro-life side kind of look at people who are pro-choice and say pro-abortion. And I don't think, and those things aren't mutually exclusive. Like I can say I think abortion is wrong, but still say a woman has the right to choose that for herself. Because, you know, you say groceries are cheap, they're not. Like my wife and I's grocery bill is $200, like almost every week. So that's to eat healthy. So like, you know, there are just financial hardships and there are so many other things that happen, so many other circumstances that we just don't know. I don't think it's fair to just put a blanket statement and say, you know, like total abortion ban.
Yeah, and I agree completely with them. I think just generally speaking, I think the pro-life, I actually really admire the pro-life approach. I think it's a lot more safe, it's more comfortable, and sometimes the uncomfortable is just the facts, is that I think being pro-life is actually being pro-anti-life in the sense that you're putting an emphasis on this unborn fetus that has the potentiality to be a human. It could be a great human, or even a rape baby, it could be a great person. But then you're discarding the woman's wants and needs, especially if that was from a rape baby. Again, that's a really small exception, but you're taking away the autonomy from a human being that is currently present, and that from opposing from the thing that is not even born.
I do want to say that being pro-life is about valuing all life the same. All life, no matter the stage of development, no matter the circumstances around conception. And with that, valuing also the mother's life. There are policies that are being worked on to support mothers and infants and things like that. There's specifically a bill that's being worked on. It's pregnancy.gov. It would create this database that a woman could put in her zip code and she would find all these resources in her area. Things like being able to apply for food stamps, housing assistance, jobs, pregnancy centers, those sorts of things. And so the focus should be on all lives, the fetuses and the mothers.
I just want to share one of my favorite passages in the Bible as a Christian that I believe speaks to the beauty of God being a creator and the gift of life. And so I will paraphrase it, as I don't have it memorized, but basically God was speaking to, David was writing this, but speaking for all humans, that I created you in your mother's womb, I knit you together and intricately wove the baby together in the mother's womb. I praise you for, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And it talked about knowing that child's life from the moment of conception, that God knew the whole plan. He's a sovereign God. And so he created this child intimately, created this child, wove it together, knit it together. It's not just a biological, it's biological, but so much more. It's human life is, there's nothing compared to human life. The human brain, the emotions, there's nothing compared to human life. Our life is all about relationships with one another, relationship with God, brothers, sisters, friends, husbands, wives. There's nothing, if we had a world of just animals, there would be no joy, no love. And so life, love and joy and everything flows from life.
Yeah, I guess I'd say there's a hierarchy of right and wrong and rights, you know, and in the constitutions and stuff, it says, you know, we got inalienable rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Life comes first because that's the most important, and happiness comes later. And if I derive happiness from speeding, the law's going to come after me because my cheap thrills put other people in danger. Or if I get pleasure from harming other people, the law's going to come after me because that's a crime. And so, you know, people talk about like you're infringing rights, you're taking away someone's freedom all over the place. Like about every law that's out there says this is allowed, this isn't. All laws say, you know, or a whole bunch of them, not the finance ones, but all kinds of laws are out there saying this is not okay. Speeding's not okay. Drunk driving's not okay. Assault is not okay. Robbery's not okay. Like, it's kind of bizarre that, you know, we're talking like we're taking away someone's right when we say we should not kill children, but we're not complaining about our rights being infringed of like, oh, shoplifting, you're taking away my right to shoplift. You know, like, it's bizarre that we have a double standard that we think murder should be okay for the woman in these circumstances, when for all the other laws, we don't complain about rights being taken away because there's a recognized morality of pursuit of happiness should not be causing harm to the other people that are living their lives.
I'd like to thank you all for watching another episode of Counterpoint. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button.
Wow, great conversation. That was great. I was loving that. I hope everyone enjoyed it. This is part 3 or 4. Regardless, this is the last one. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Saw different types of strangers in the world, man. Strangers that think it's okay to kill. So as always, stay dangerous, my silver strangers. Peace.